better? Okay. Today my presentation will be covering the regulatory approaches to environmental protection from the regulatory point of view. The agenda for my presentation today will cover an introduction to the drug control administration, the effects of the drugs on the environment, the international regulations to reduce the environmental risks of drugs, what are the regulatory perspectives, including the review process, the GMP guidelines, the pharmacovigilance, and finally I am concluding my presentation. Drug control administration main objective, the main role is protecting the public health by assuring quality, safety, and efficacy of the medications and the public health products. This is the latest number of registered products in Kuwait in October 2015. We have 4,936 products registered as a pharmaceutical drug, 1,030 veterinary drugs, 253 herbal drugs, and 5,238 health products and medical devices. So imagine a total of 11,257 pharmaceutical products in the market. Imagine the environmental impact of all these pharmaceuticals on the environment. Actually, it's a direct relation. The pharmaceutical market is growing, and on the parallel, the environmental impact of the environmental problems are increasing in parallel. The pharmaceutical substance actually, due to its properties, it's engineered or designed to be stable in the human body. But unfortunately, this stability that makes it persist for a long time outside the body and can cause or create environmental problems. So what are the international regulations to minimize the environmental risks of drugs? The Directive number 2001 per 83 of the EU Parliament and Council of the European Union mentions the environmental risks in many of its points and articles. I'll give you an example. In point number 28, with regard to the definition of risks related to the use of medicinal products, it defines risks as any risk related to quality, safety, and efficacy. In the definition also, it defined it as any risk of undesirable effects on the environment. In Article 8 of the above directive of the environmental risk assessment, it should be included as a part of the marketing authorization application, and it stated evaluation of the potential environmental risks posed by the medicinal product. This impact shall be assessed and on case-by-case basis, specific arrangements to limit the challenge. So what are the regulatory perspectives in this area? The regulatory actions actually consist of the review process, ensuring GMP and monitoring of the pharmacovigilance. We'll go in details with each action of the regulatory actions in respect of ingredients of the environmental problems. What's the review process? Actually, for any pharmaceutical product to be licensed and approved by drug control, a complete review process and evaluation process should be included in order to license the product to be marketed in the Kuwait market. The evaluation process goes through three main areas. We go through the quality, safety, and efficacy. The environmental risk assessment is one of the requirements which is required before a drug is allowed to be placed in the market. It is one of the main requirements of Module 1 in the CPD. I'll give you a quick information on what the CPD is. Simply, the CPD, which is the Common Technical Document, is a common harmonized format for preparation or for organizing of the registration documents to be submitted to the authorities. What's the main advantage of this CPD is that it makes it unified and harmonized all over the world, which means that the registration documents or registration is submitted in the US will be relatively the same as the one submitted in the EU and relatively the same as the one submitted in Kuwait in the GCC region. So it's a harmonization of the submission process. The CCD was agreed upon in November 2000 by the ICH, International Conference on Harmonization. The use of the CCD for merit became mandatory in EU in 2003. In Kuwait, we started implementing the CCD in 2011. So it is a new area. We didn't require environmental risk assessment before 2011. After 2011, we started paying attention to the global concern of the environmental factors affecting the product before licensing. And from that date, we started receiving environmental risk assessment submissions. This is how the diagram of the CCD triangle looks. This is the CCD, how it looks. Here in module 1, where we define the environmental risk assessment documents placed, I'll give you a larger vision of the module 1. Here in point 1.5 is the environmental risk assessment submitted. The environmental risk assessment includes environmental risks for non-GMOs containing medicines and environmental risks for GMOs containing medicines. What are the environmental risks for GMOs containing medicines? What are GMOs? GMOs are genetically modified organisms, which means that it's an organism whose gene has been altered using genetic engineering. Most probably, the GMOs are the ones used by the biotechnology products. As far as you know, the biotechnology medicine and the biotechnology drugs are increasing nowadays. And as long as the biotechnology products are increasing, in parallel, the GMOs are increasing in our environment. So this needs a proper assessment. Should I check this? Is it okay? I guess this one is not for me. I have to test it out. Yeah. Okay. I can use this one or this one is fine. Yeah. So, the environmental risks assessment means the evaluation of the risks to human health and the environment related to the release of GMOs and product containing GMOs. In case of a product submitted for registration, where this product is known to pose, or it is a GMO containing medicine, the following requirements should be submitted. First of all, is the voice okay? You can hear me? It's okay. We need environmental risk assessment report. We need the results of any investigations performed for the purpose of research and development. Important thing is that we need a conclusion which proposes an appropriate risk management strategy, which includes a post-market monitoring plan, and the identification of any special particulars which need to appear in the label packages. Sometimes the manufacturer needs to add instructions on the label to reduce the environmental risk. These instructions need to be reviewed and need to be as per the references, as per the tests done for the R&D. That was for the medicines containing GMOs. Of course, our main concern are the GMOs medicines because they propose a great risk in the environment. But also the non-GMOs we should consider. We have to make sure that the application for marketing authorizations should include in the Module 1 an indication of any potential risks presented by the environment, by the drug to the environment. The manufacturer should state that there is no hazard on the environment. Maybe this requirement is particular for the new active substances, it's not for the generic medicine. Reference to standard physicochemical testing and any biodegradability testing conducted should be submitted. The risk assessment overview should include an evaluation of the possible risks to the environment from the point of view of use or disposal and make proposal for labeling provision which would reduce the risk. Also, sometimes in the non-GMOs they would need to change the label or they need to change the leaflet or to add sessions in the leaflet to reduce the environmental risks. The other regulatory action in this aspect is the good manufacturing practice. Our drug control role in this point is that the drug regulatory authorities, we perform inspection visits to the pharmaceutical manufacturers in order to confirm that they are compliant with the GMP guidelines, and accordingly we can grant them the pharmaceutical manufacturing license and the GMP certificate. It's a standard thing. It's higher than the ISO, but it's the main standards required for pharmaceutical manufacturing. Management of waste material is a part of the GMP guidelines that should be assessed during the regulatory authority inspection visit. The drug control assessment includes documentation assessment and procedure assessment. What are the documents assessed during this visit, during the inspection visits? What are the documents that we need to make sure the company has? Any pharmaceutical company should have a written procedure stating their policy on waste management. How do they handle the waste management? How do they handle the rejected materials, the expired goods, the waste that comes from the laboratory testing? So we mainly go through the SOP, which is the standard operating procedure for storage and disposal of waste, as well as the SOP for rejected materials. We also need to make sure that the procedure is appropriate. We need to make sure that the manufacturing company is following the safe and sanitary disposal of wastes. Actually, the pharmaceutical waste or the waste from the companies, it's not necessary to be destructed at once or removed at once from the facility. Sometimes the manufacturing company need to store it for some time and then it will be moved for whether it's a contract manufacturer that takes the disposals or to be destructed by any means. At this awaiting time, it should be collected in suitable containers. It should have a proper and safe storage, and toxic inflammable materials should be stored in suitably designed, separate enclosed cupboards. Also, waste material should not accumulate, and it should be removed at regular and frequent intervals. The regulatory authority the inspector would verify whether the manufacturer complies with its policy and SOP or not. Sometimes they have the policy and it's written perfectly, but when you go and inspect the procedures, it's not complying with their SOP. So the important thing that we have to match, we have to make sure that the procedures are properly done as well as the documentation. Now we'll be covering the third regulatory action in this aspect, which is the pharmacovigilance. The WHO defines the pharmacovigilance as the science and activities relating to the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effects or any other drug-related problem. It didn't only specify the related problems to the adverse effects coming from medicines or the pharmacological effects, but it also defined it as any drug-related problem, which can include the environmental risks and the environmental problems in this definition. Well, the mechanism of adverse drug reactions. There are debates over the possibility of causing ADRs from drugs which are available in the environment. Yes, it's debatable, but it should be considered. The ADRs are classified traditionally in two main categories. It's type A reactions and type B reactions. If we take a look at type A reaction, this is the most common type. It's dose-related and it's predictable from the drug pharmacology. Let's move to the type B reactions, which we are concerned. If we take a look at type B reactions, it's dose-independent, which means that traces of the drug in the environment can be a cause of type B ADR. It's uncommon, and in this point, the environmental and genetic factors are important in this reaction. That's why we have to consider that even if we are not seeing it now, but it should be considered, and the eco-pharmacovigilance should be a part of our pharmacovigilance campaign. So, the Drug Control Authority are taking care of the environmental risks in different stages of the product. Pre-licensing or pre-marketing, and during the manufacturing process and post-marketing. Before marketing or pre-marketed, we will not allow a product to be placed in the market unless a complete environmental risk assessment is there, which proves that the product does not affect the environment harmfully. Also, during the manufacturing process, we have to make sure that the manufacturers of pharmaceuticals are following the GMP guidelines for the disposal of wastes. Post-marketing, we have to follow up and monitoring the post-marketing effect of the product, which we call the pharmacovigilance, avoiding any ADR or any serious ADR that might come from the drug. I'm done with my presentation, but I really need to stress on the point that this is a new area for all of us. And this needs us all to cooperate, whether the governmental sector or the private sector or the academia and the university. We need to be one team in order to set up researches for what's going on in our environment. It's very limited. We have very limited information in this, and we need all to work together as one team to protect our environment and to ensure the public health everywhere. Thank you so much for your attention.